Lessons in the garden. There have been a few lessons in the garden this week. One, if you have the money and there's something that you see that and you're like, oh, I could really use that. And then you think, you know what? I'll just buy it when I'm ready for it. Buy it. just go ahead, put it in the corner. I know that on these videos, all of my little piles of things probably make some of y'all crazy. I know that y'all are like, Samantha just be throwing stuff everywhere. And that's a little bit true. I try to keep it tidy. You know, I throw away the trash things. But there are T-posts stacked against buildings and flower trays and plastic pots and things like that that I need to find a place for. I have a place for. I need to organize said place so that I can actually store them there. But the thing about it is, I needed some galvanized buckets. I wanted to do my strawberry patch in a galvanized bucket because if you put it in the ground, it's going to take over everything, and I don't feel like spending my life ripping out strawberries. Honestly, I don't have the heart to rip out strawberries. I'm not very good at taking out the volunteers. Like, if you have made it through a fall and a winter and a season and my chickens and the lawnmower and everything else, and you come to fruition, dude, part of me thinks you probably deserve it. But then you're taking up space that I need for something else. So, you know, but I didn't buy those galvanized buckets. And then when I needed them to transplant my strawberries after pulling all of the fresh berries off, they are now over double in price. And the store doesn't even have the size that I wanted. So this season, I'm growing them in a horse feed container. And probably next season, and maybe the season after that. Who knows when it'll come back around that I have the $40 in my pocket and I'm standing right in front of one. I should have bought it when I was there. There's a lot of things that are that way in the garden. Discount seeds I wished I had grabbed and all of that kind of stuff. So the advantage to gardening is, like, the startup cost isn't expensive, right? The $40 tub for the strawberries, not exactly expensive. The $6 pack of seeds that I wish I had grabbed so that I could grow milkweed for my daughter's butterflies, not expensive. It was just sort of like not crucial. So if you have the money and it's in front of you, dude, buy it. Make yourself a junk pile. And if everything you have is a junk pile, find a corner for it. I feel like, I guess life is a lesson, right? If you're not learning lessons through life, you're probably not doing it right. But the garden especially, I think that's probably applicable to a lot of things in life. And then, you know, weed with your coffee and your morning chickens. Drinking coffee this morning and realized that, we're gonna go somewhere for a day or two. And that's the best part about the garden right now is you can leave it. We can leave it for 2 or 3 if we wanted to. The chickens can be set up for up to 3 or 4 days. But what are these weeds gonna look like in 3 or 4 days? You know? So we got a good rain last night and I've been out here for about 30 minutes with my coffee pulling weeds. Now when I'm done pulling these weeds, it probably won't even look like I weeded. I mean, the space of this garden, I'm not gonna be able to make a dent in it in 45 minutes in the morning. But if I come out here and spend 30 or 45 minutes with it every morning, we won't get overrun with weeds. I won't have to re-weed these butternut squash for a week or two. I'm gonna have to do those broccolis though. I'm about to pull out the peas and put down my beans there. And yes, I am behind. Y'all will learn I'm not the early starter. I'm not the one that has all of the tomatoes and peppers in the day after the last frost. And that's okay. We get a really large harvest and my family eats really well. And you know, I think gardening is a lot in the planning, which is part of why I love it. But it's also like kind of foolproof. You know, if you put your tomatoes down 2 weeks late, which is about to happen to me with half of my tomatoes because I haven't gotten the second trellis erected yet. I mean, I'm just gonna pull tomatoes 2 weeks later, but half of my tomatoes are in, so we'll be eating Starburst tomatoes instead of beefsteak tomatoes. It's fine. It's always fine out here. There's always a lesson to be learned in the garden. And in the garden, it's quiet enough to really hear those things speak into your soul. I like that part. I'll just keep weeding. But before, because nobody wants to watch me weed, let me show you guys how big the plants are right now. And maybe we'll walk up front. I did make my son help me start a new flower bed space. I know I didn't need it, but I did because I had 1 million flowers in pots. I don't think that's gonna get planted this year though. I just needed to kill off all of the grass and stuff that was where I want it to be. But these guys, the jalapenos are nice and big. This butternut squash seems to really like this trellis idea. The cantaloupe underneath it is doing well. The peas are petering out, so I'm probably gonna pull them. If not this week, then next week. I do need to harvest peas today when I get done weeding. But, and I have to harvest those before I leave town, or we'll have volunteer peas there next year. And you know, my soul won't be willing to pull them up. But we got a good rain last night. The soil's nice and moist. It's gonna be super hot in about an hour and a half. So take your coffee to the garden. Listen to the lessons it has for you. Let your mind wander. It's amazing how renewing that can be in the morning. Let's take a look. Okay, well, we're gonna start here. Even though I know it's not pretty. These Rubbermaid containers have grown me vegetables for the last 3 or 4 years. They are gonna have to be retired at the end of the season this year. But for right now, the winter squash experiment is doing really well. I'm not sure exactly which squash I put in each of these buckets, but they are blooming, and in the fall, they're gonna look so nice on my porch. The beets, obviously the heat is really getting to them, and the heads are big enough. It's probably time for me to pull those out. There is the feeder that I transplanted the strawberries in. And of course the onions have been so happy this season. That little patch of late chard, well, we can probably get a salad or two off of it before it bolts. The celeries are beautiful. Let's see if we can get down in there. Oh, there we go. Those are gonna be so nice. I have come out and pulled 1 or 2 to eat with a little peanut butter because sometimes I still eat child snacks. And I was letting these bolt and go to seed, but it looks like they have dried out, so I just need to pull them up. The carrots in my green stalk though are going to be amazing. And these two right here are just a different breed of jalapeno that I got this year. I think they are actually jalapenos. So I'm keeping them separate so that I can seed them. And I know that they are the not hot ones for my little girl. There's our little zucchini looking so happy. But here's where it really gets nice. The broccoli. I know that I've told you guys before how much I love broccoli. And because I did 3 different rounds, you can see that each of them is a slightly different size. We've got these big guys here, and then these little guys back here. Those may bolt before I get anything off of them. And look at all of this grass weed. Ugh, I'm gonna have to pull it out. The advantage is most of it is from the straw, so it pulls pretty easily. It just takes, you know, a cup of coffee. This guy, we're gonna get a head off of this soon. Oh, somewhere down in there. I don't see one starting yet. And the bugs are starting to get my leaves. But in the end, I tend to pull the leaves and give them to the bunny rabbit anyway. These peas, y'all. They are so tall. I have had to go and like tie them back to the trellis because they were laid completely over the broccolis that are in front of them. And they are plump and ready to be pulled. Those will be dinner tonight. The loved ones that we are visiting with are going to enjoy a Harvest Fresh Garden dinner. Ugh, I'm so excited about these. We will be planting them that same way next year, I can tell you that. This little patch of leeks seems to be pretty happy. You know, those won't be harvestable until winter, but I'm learning to plan my fall and winter harvest now because it's one of those things I sort of always focused on getting in the spring garden, and then I would realize that I was too late. Look at these lima beans. Lima beans are my dad's favorite. So I grow a nice big patch of them. There's actually 2 rows there. And you'll have to forgive my trellis work, but it was sort of makeshift, and that's fine. It works. These are my tomatoes. This particular breed is my favorite. Those are the Starburst tomatoes. There's the cucumbers starting to work their way up our little trellis. And those back there are the Rutgers, which I love to make sauces with and put on crackers with the goat cheese. These beans are the pinto beans, and there's the tomatoes that I still need to put in, and it looks like 2 of them have given up the ghost on me. These are the pinto beans. They did seem to transplant really well. I still have to get in the kidney beans and the black-eyed peas, but they'll make it. Now these tall 6 here, these are the hot jalapenos. And then right here, these little guys are the cayennes. I think just because it got so cool right after I started those, they're sort of holding out on me. But we've got 1 or 2 that's getting a little tall back there. They'll catch up eventually. Those butternut squash though, they really like this trellis. And you can see the grass trying to hide in between them. And here's our cantaloupes. It's almost time to start training them into the circles. I find that if I wrap them in circles on themselves, they end up with enough leaf space, but they also take up a little bit less actual square footage in the garden. I'm going to try to keep them all underneath this trellis here.